The day my grandson's secret walked through my bookstore door changed everything. My son Diego sold my husband's prized bookstore behind my back, forged my signature, and offered me just $15,000 from the $1.2 million sale. What I discovered next revealed a 16-year betrayal far deeper than money. My name is Elena Vega. I'm 62 years old, and this is my story. Before I tell you what happened, you should know that Páginas wasn't just a bookstore. For 40 years, my husband Javier and I built it from nothing into the heart of Boulder's literary community. When Javier died of a heart attack 2 years ago, that bookstore became all I had left of him, our legacy, our love story between the shelves. It was a Tuesday in November, the kind where Colorado's mountain chill seeps into your bones. I was alone in the store, struggling with the monthly accounts. The numbers weren't good. Online retailers were slowly strangling small bookstores like mine, but I refused to give up. After Javier's death, our son Diego had immediately suggested selling. "Think practically, Mom," he'd said, as if 40 years of our lives could be reduced to a business transaction. When I refused, Diego stormed out telling me I was choosing dusty books over my own son's future. He wanted me to sell Páginas to fund his latest startup scheme, some subscription box service targeting young professionals. For 2 years since that fight, my only child hadn't spoken to me. 42 years of motherhood, of bandaging scraped knees and attending every soccer game, of college tuition payments, and helping with the down payment on his first home, all erased because I wouldn't hand over Javier's legacy. The bell above the door jingled, pulling me from my thoughts. A teenage girl stepped inside, bringing with her a gust of cold air. She hesitated just beyond the threshold, clutching a worn backpack to her chest. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and her oversized jacket hung from her thin frame. But it was her face that caught my attention, something familiar in the set of her jaw, the shape of her eyes. I gave her space, watching from behind the counter as she moved tentatively through the fiction section. She picked up a book, read the first page, then moved to poetry. For nearly 20 minutes, she wandered through the store, clearly killing time in a warm place. Finally, she approached the counter. "Excuse me," she said, her voice quiet but determined. "Are you hiring?" I studied her face. "How old are you?" 16. The answer came quickly rehearsed. "I know I'm young, but I work hard. I love books, and I'm a fast learner." "What's your name?" "Lucia. Lucia Navarro." Navarro. The name didn't immediately register. "Where do you live, Lucia?" Her eyes dropped to the counter. "There's a shelter 2 blocks over. I've been staying there for the past week, but I can't stay much longer. I need a job." "You're not from Boulder?" "No, I'm from Santa Fe. She hesitated. "I ran away from an orphanage about a year ago." "An orphanage?" Something twisted in my chest. "What about your parents?" She was quiet for a moment, her fingers tracing patterns on the counter. "My mom died 4 years ago. Drug overdose. I found her." She said it flatly, like reciting a fact from a textbook. "My dad died before I was born. At least that's what my mom told me." "I'm sorry," I said. "What was your mother's name?" "Sophia. Sophia Navarro." The air left my lungs in a rush. Sophia Navarro. The name transported me back 17 years to a summer when a dark-haired young woman would sit in the corner of this very bookstore, reading poetry aloud to my son. Diego had brought her around for a few months. Then suddenly she was gone. He'd shrugged it off. We broke up, she moved back to New Mexico, and I never saw her again. I looked at Lucia with new eyes. 16 years old. The timing aligned perfectly. The familiar features I'd noticed weren't my imagination. She had Diego's eyes, his stubborn chin. Could it be possible? Was this girl standing in front of me, my granddaughter? "Do you have any work experience?" I asked, buying time as my mind raced. "Not officially, but I practically ran our household from the time I was 10. My mom was—" She trailed off. "She wasn't well. I made sure bills got paid at least when there was money. I kept things going until I couldn't anymore." My heart ached for this child who'd never been allowed to be a child. "Can I ask why you came to Boulder specifically?" "It's a long way from Santa Fe." Something flickered in her eyes. Caution, perhaps. "I found some old photos in my mom's things, before things got really bad. She looked happy here. There was a picture of her in front of a bookstore." She pulled a worn photograph from her pocket and slid it across the counter. My fingers trembled as I picked it up. There was Sophia Young and smiling, standing in front of Pagina's. The date stamp in the corner read June 2008. She never told you about Boulder about anyone here. Lucia shook her head. Just that she lived here for a while before I was born. Said it was the happiest time of her life. She straightened her shoulders. So do you have any work? Even just a few hours I can organize whatever you need. I made my decision in that moment. You're hired. Can you start tomorrow at 9? Her eyes widened in disbelief. Really, just like that? You don't want references or anything? I trust my instincts, and I could use the help. I came around the counter. There's a sofa in the back office. It's not much, but it's warm and private. You can stay there until you find something better. I can't pay you. You'll work. That's payment enough. I held out my hand. Welcome to Pagina's, Lucia. As we shook hands, I thought about the DNA test kits I'd seen advertised online. I needed to know for sure if what I suspected was true. If this girl who had walked into my bookstore on a cold November day was the granddaughter I never knew existed. Lucia arrived at 8:45 the next morning, standing outside as I unlocked the front door. Good morning, I called, noting how her shoulders relaxed at my greeting. Good morning. I'm not too early, am I? Not at all. Come in. I flipped the sign to open and turned on the lights. Have you had breakfast? She hesitated. I'm fine. That meant no. There's a cafe next door. Marco owes me a favor. Go tell him I sent you, and to put it on my tab. I don't need... You can't work on an empty stomach. Go. I shooed her toward the door. I'll be here when you get back. While she was gone, I cleared space in the back office. The sofa was old but clean, and I found a pillow and blanket in the storage closet. It wasn't much, but it was better than a shelter. Lucia returned 15 minutes later with coffee and a pastry wrapped in paper. Thank you, she said, her voice small. I'll pay you back. Don't worry about it. I showed her around the store, explaining our organization system: fiction alphabetical, by author, nonfiction, by subject, with special sections for poetry, local authors, and children's books. She listened intently, asking smart questions and jotting notes in a small notebook she pulled from her backpack. Do you get many customers? She asked as the morning stretched on with only 2 people coming in. Not like we used to. People buy online now. I sighed. The big chains killed most independent bookstores, and then Amazon came for the chains. She ran her hand along a shelf of hardcovers. But these are beautiful. You can't get this feeling from a screen. I liked her already. By lunchtime, I felt comfortable leaving her at the register while I organized new inventory. I watched through the doorway as she helped customers, her natural warmth drawing them in. She recommended books with confidence, as if she'd worked here for years rather than hours. During a quiet afternoon stretch, I found her sitting cross-legged in the poetry section, writing in her notebook. What are you working on? I asked. She startled, closing the notebook quickly. Nothing, just thoughts, I guess. Stories. You write, sometimes. It's probably terrible. I doubt that. You have a way with words. I've heard you with the customers. A small smile. Books were my friends when I was younger. When things got bad at home, I sat on a stool nearby. What happened at home, Lucia, with your mother? She was quiet for so long I thought she wouldn't answer. Finally, she spoke, her voice steady but distant. My mom was great once. Before I was born, I think. Her parents kicked her out when she got pregnant. She was 20. She picked at the edge of her notebook. The drugs started when I was little. By the time I was 10, I was the one taking care of her. That's a lot for a child to handle. I didn't have a choice. She looked up at me, her eyes too old for her 16 years. I found her. When she died. I came home from school and she was in the bathroom. I called 911, but... She shrugged a small, helpless gesture. After that, it was foster care. Then the orphanage, when no one wanted a traumatized 12-year-old. And that place was so bad you ran away. Cold. Institutional. They didn't care about us as people, just as problems to manage. Her voice hardened. So yeah, when I turned 15, I walked out the front door and never went back. Been on my own since. I understood loss. I understood loneliness. But what this child had endured was beyond my comprehension. Sitting there in the quiet bookstore with afternoon light filtering through the windows, I felt something shift inside me, a fierce protectiveness I hadn't felt since Diego was small. Did your mother leave you anything? I asked. Photos, mementos. Lucia hesitated, then reached into her backpack and pulled out a small battered book. The cover was held together with tape, the pages yellowed and dog-eared. Her poetry book. She gave it to me right before things got really bad. Told me to keep it safe. I took it gently, opening to the inside cover. Written in faded ink were the words, "For my Lucia love finds a way, Mom." "She wrote that when I was 11, Lucia said softly. "A few months before she died. Sometimes I read it and try to remember her voice, the way she'd make the words sound like music." "Is that why you write to remember her?" "Maybe." She took the book back, holding it close. "I write the version of her I wish I'd had. The mom who stayed clean, who took care of me instead of the other way around." "That's not stupid, Lucia. That's survival." She looked at me. "That's exactly what it is." Over the next week, Lucia proved herself invaluable. She suggested reorganizing the young adult section and moving it to the front window. "It's popular right now," she explained. "If we showcase it, we might get more foot traffic." She was right. Within days, our sales had increased. She created handwritten recommendation cards, organized displays by theme rather than just alphabetically, and started a social media account for the store. "You're good at this," I told her, watching as she arranged a display for Hispanic Heritage Month featuring Latino authors prominently. "I just know what would have made me feel welcome when I was younger." She straightened a stack of books. "A place that felt like it was for me." I found myself sharing more about my life. My immigration from Spain as a young woman meeting Javier in college, our dream of opening a bookstore. I told her about the early years of struggle, how we'd built Páginas from a tiny shop into what it was now. I mentioned Diego only in passing, saying he lived in town, but we weren't close. "Why not?" she asked one evening as we closed up. I chose my words carefully. "We had a disagreement after his father died, about the store. He wanted you to sell." "Yes, for his business venture. When I refused, he hasn't spoken to me in 2 years. She frowned. "That's harsh. It's your store." "It was Javier's and mine. Our life's work." I locked the cash register. Diego never understood what it meant to us. He saw it as an asset, not a legacy. "I'm sorry," she said simply. On her 7th night at Páginas, I made a decision. "Lucia, there's a proper bedroom upstairs. It was my office, but I never use it. Would you like to move up there? It's more comfortable than the sofa." She stared at me. "You want me to stay upstairs in your home?" "If you'd like. No pressure." "Why are you doing all this for me? You barely know me." I looked at this girl who reminded me so much of someone I knew. "Because everyone deserves a chance, Lucia. And I think you and I might need each other right now." That night, I ordered 2 DNA test kits online. The kits arrived 3 days later. Lucia was organizing the mystery section when I brought the package downstairs. "What's that?" she asked. I held up the boxes. "DNA test kits. I got interested in genealogy after reading this book on family histories." I set the boxes on the counter. "I accidentally ordered 2. Would you like to try one with me? Could be fun to see where our families came from." She approached cautiously. "Really?" "Why not? You might discover something interesting about your heritage." "I don't know much about my family, just my mom." "That's okay. These tests can show ancestry from generations back." She shrugged. "Sure, why not?" We opened the kits together, following the simple instructions. Swab inside your cheek, seal the tube, mail it back. Lucia did hers first, then watched as I did mine. "How long does it take?" she asked as we walked to the post office. 3 to 4 weeks. "That's forever," I smiled. "Good things take time." As we waited for the results, Lucia became more settled at Páginas. She had transformed the spare bedroom upstairs into her own space with books borrowed from the store, creating a small library around her bed. She enrolled in online classes to complete her high school education, working diligently in the mornings before the store opened and in the evenings after we closed. I observed her closely, looking for more signs that she might be Diego's daughter, the way she furrowed her brow when concentrating, just like my son. Her laugh, sudden and bright, reminiscent of Diego as a boy. The way she used her hands when excited about a book, gestures that mirrored his. One Thursday afternoon, during a rare, quiet moment, I asked her about her birth certificate. "Do you have a copy?" She nodded. "It's one of the few documents I made sure to take when I left. That and my social security card." "Why?" "Just thinking about what you'll need for enrolling in school properly, getting a job beyond Páginas." "Does it list a father?" She hesitated, then reached into her backpack and pulled out a folder. From it, she extracted a worn birth certificate. It says Diego Vega, but my mom always told me he died before I was born. She looked up at me. Why do you ask? My heart raced. There it was in black and white, my son's name. Just curious. Diego is a common name in Spanish-speaking families. She studied me for a moment, then carefully returned the certificate to her folder. My mom never talked about him much, just that he was her first love and that he died in an accident before she knew she was pregnant. She shrugged. I used to make up stories about him when I was little. What he was like, what he did for work. Kid stuff. I swallowed hard against the lump in my throat. It's natural to wonder, did you know my mom when she was here in Boulder? The question was casual, but her eyes were intent. I might have, I said carefully. Sofia Navarro, the name sounds familiar. She would have been here about 17 years ago, 20 years old, studying literature at the community college. Boulder's a small city in some ways. It's possible we crossed paths. Lucia seemed to accept this, but I could see the wheels turning behind her eyes. She wasn't just a good writer, she was observant, connecting dots I hadn't realized I was leaving. The waiting became almost unbearable. I checked my email, constantly refreshing the DNA company's website multiple times a day. Lucia caught me once and teased, "You're really into this ancestry stuff, huh?" Just curious about my Spanish roots. I lied. My parents never talked much about where we came from. Meanwhile, Lucia continued to transform Páginas. Her idea for a monthly book club brought in new customers. Her social media posts about hidden gems on our shelves resulted in people coming in specifically asking for titles she'd highlighted. Sales improved enough that I could pay her a proper wage beyond room and board. "You don't have to," she protested when I handed her the first check. "Yes, I do. You work, you get paid. That's how it works." She stared at the check like it might disappear. "I've never had my own money before, not legally earned." "Well, now you do. It's not much, but it's yours." The results came on a Monday morning, 3 weeks and 4 days after we'd mailed the samples. I was alone in the store when the email notification appeared on my phone. Lucia was upstairs finishing an online class assignment. My hands trembled as I logged into the website and opened our results. There it was, clear as day, granddaughter match Lucia Navarro. I printed the results, my mind racing. How would I tell her? What would this mean? Would she be angry that I'd suspected but hadn't told her? Most importantly, what would I tell her about Diego, who had no idea she existed, or did he Lucia? I called up the stairs. "Can you come down for a minute?" She appeared a few moments later. "What's up?" "The DNA results are in." "Oh," she brightened. "That was faster than you said. What'd we get? Am I secretly royalty or something?" She laughed. I turned the laptop toward her. "Look at this." She leaned in, reading the screen. Her smile faded, replaced by confusion, then shock. "Grandmother match I don't understand." She looked up at me. "How is this possible?" I took a deep breath. "I have a son. His name is Diego. He's 38 years old." She went very still. 17 years ago, he dated your mother, Sofia Navarro. That summer she used to come to this bookstore to meet him. "You knew," she whispered. "You knew who I was when I walked in." "I suspected," I corrected gently. "You looked like him, and when you said your mother's name, I remembered her. But I needed to be sure." "My father isn't dead." It wasn't a question. "No, he's alive." "Does he know about me?" "I don't know. I need to ask him." Lucia sank into a chair, her face pale. "My whole life. She lied to me. Why would she tell me he was dead if he wasn't?" "To protect you, maybe. I don't know what happened between them." "You're really my grandmother." She looked up at me, tears filling her eyes. "We're family." "Yes, Lucia, we're family." Does my father want to meet me?" The hope in her voice broke my heart. "I don't know yet. I need to talk to him first." She nodded, wiping at her eyes. "When today? I'll call him today." "What if he doesn't want me?" The fear was naked on her face. I took her hands in mine. "Then he's a fool, and you still have me." Tears spilled over and she began to cry in earnest. I pulled her into my arms, feeling her body shake with sobs. My granddaughter. I had a granddaughter. After she calmed, I sent her to get lunch while I made the call. My phone seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds as I scrolled to Diego's number still saved after 2 years of silence. I dialed before I could lose my courage. It rang 4 times. I almost hung up. Mom, his voice wary and surprised. Diego, I need to see you. Today, if possible. Why, what's going on? I need to talk to you about something important. In person. A pause. I'm busy. Make time. My voice was harder than I intended. This isn't something we can discuss over the phone. He sighed, the sound of irritation so familiar it hurt. Fine, I can come by the bookstore at 4. Thank you. He hung up without saying goodbye. I stood there, phone in hand, my heart racing. In a few hours, I would confront my son about the daughter he might or might not know existed. A daughter he had never acknowledged, never supported. A daughter who had suffered while he built his comfortable life. Lucia returned an hour later. Did you call him? Yes. He's coming at 4. Her face went through a series of emotions. Hope, fear, excitement, dread. Should I be here? Maybe stay upstairs at first. Let me talk to him. What if he's happy? What if he wants to meet me? The hope in her voice killed me. Let's just see what he says. 4 o'clock came with agonizing slowness. 15 minutes before Lucia went upstairs, her footsteps betraying her nervous energy as she paced the floor above. At precisely 4, the bell above the door jingled and Diego walked in. He looked the same: expensive coat, carefully styled hair, the confident stride of someone who'd never doubted his place in the world. He glanced around the store with barely concealed disdain. Mom, a nod, not a hug. Diego, thank you for coming. You said it was important. He stayed near the door as if planning a quick escape. I locked the front door and flipped the sign to closed. We should sit. I'd rather stand. Fine, we do this his way. Do you remember Sofia Navarro? His expression didn't change, but I saw the slight tensing of his shoulders. What about her? She had a daughter, 16 years old. Her name is Lucia. Now a flicker of something crossed his face. Okay, and she's your daughter. That's not possible. It is possible. It's true. He shook his head. Sophia and I broke up. She left. She left because she was pregnant with your baby. No, she would have told me. Would she? Or would she have been too scared, too hurt by what you'd said? He looked away, jaw tight. This is insane. I pulled the DNA results from under the counter, unfolded them, and placed them in front of him. These are DNA test results. Lucia took one. I took one. She's my granddaughter, which makes her your daughter. He stared at the paper, then pushed it away. These things make mistakes all the time. Diego, her birth certificate lists you as the father. That stopped him. He looked back at me, face pale. That's not possible. I never signed anything. She has your name on her birth certificate, and she has your eyes, your chin. Anyone who knows you would see it immediately. Why are you doing this? The coldness in his voice chilled me. After 2 years of silence, you ambush me with this. Because she deserves to know her father. I leaned forward. Sophia died 4 years ago. Drug overdose. Lucia found her mother's body when she was 12. She's been in foster care in an orphanage. She ran away last year and has been homeless. No reaction. Nothing in his face showed the slightest concern. She's 16 years old, Diego, and she's been through hell. I don't want to be a father, he said flatly. I never did. My stomach turned. What then? I never wanted kids. I made that clear back then. You told Sophia that... Yes. When she started talking about the future, about us, I told her I wasn't interested. That's probably why she left. I stared at my son, this stranger in expensive clothes. So you knew? You knew she was pregnant? He hesitated, then nodded. She told me. I told her I didn't want anything to do with it. I was 21, Mom. I had plans. A kid wasn't part of them. A kid. Your daughter. A person. He shrugged. I was clear about what I wanted. She made her choice. You let her leave pregnant and alone. She wasn't my responsibility. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She's upstairs right now. Your daughter. She's brilliant kind, and she's survived things no child should have to face. His eyes flicked toward the ceiling, then back to me. I don't care. How can you say that? Because it's the truth. He pulled his keys from his pocket. Find someone else to guilt-trip Mom. I'm not interested in playing happy family. This isn't about playing anything. This is about a girl who deserves what a father who doesn't want her. That'll be great for everyone. He turned toward the door. Don't contact me about this again. Diego. He unlocked the door and walked out without looking back. I stood in the empty store, the DNA results still on the counter, my heart breaking for the girl upstairs and for the son I thought I knew. I heard a creak on the stairs and turned to see Lucia standing there, tears streaming down her face. She'd heard everything. He doesn't want me, she said quietly. Lucia, it's okay. She wiped her eyes quickly. I figured as much. It's fine. It's not okay. He should want to know you. Well, he doesn't. Her voice cracked. I'm used to it. I crossed to her, pulled her into a hug. She cried softly against my shoulder, the kind of quiet crying you learn when you don't want to bother anyone. I'm sorry, I whispered. I'm so sorry. You tried, she said. That's more than most people would do. He's wrong, I told her fiercely. This isn't about you. It's about him being selfish and cruel. She nodded against my shoulder. My mom was right in a way. He is dead to me. I understand if you want to leave. If this is too much. She pulled back, surprised. Leave? Why would I leave? Because I'm his mother. Because I raised the man who just— You're not him, she interrupted. You've been kinder to me in 2 weeks than most people have been my entire life. She took a shaky breath. If you still want me here, I'd like to stay. Of course I want you here. This is your home now. You're my granddaughter, your family. Diego doesn't get to decide that. What if he changes his mind? Then we'll deal with it, but I'm not holding my breath. She tried to smile. Can I ask you something? Anything. Do you think something's wrong with me? Why doesn't he want me? My heart shattered. There is nothing wrong with you, Lucia. Not one single thing. He's the one who's broken, not you. Are you sure? I have never been more sure of anything in my life. She hugged me again tighter this time. Thank you, she whispered, for trying, for caring. You don't have to thank me. I do, though. We stayed like that until the light outside turned purple with dusk, until the street lamps flickered on, until the world felt a little less sharp around the edges. Lucia went upstairs to lie down emotionally exhausted. I stayed in the store straightening shelves that didn't need straightening, processing what had just happened. My son didn't want his daughter. Fine. I did, and that was going to be enough. The next morning we moved the rest of Lucia's meager belongings upstairs. Her backpack, the poetry book, 3 changes of clothes, and a toothbrush from the shelter. That's it, I asked. She shrugged. Easier to run when you don't have much weighing you down. You're not running anymore. She looked at me, studied my face, then nodded once. No, I'm not running anymore. As she arranged her few possessions in the bedroom, I made a silent promise to myself and to her. She would never have to run again. She would have a home, a family, a future. And someday Diego would regret what he had thrown away, a chance to know this remarkable girl who, despite everything, still had the capacity to hope, to trust, to love. But for now, it was just the 2 of us. 2 women separated by generations, but connected by blood and by choice, building something new from the broken pieces of what came before. That night, I heard Lucia moving around at 3 a.m. I found her standing in the kitchen, staring out the window at the empty street below. Can't sleep, I asked softly. She startled slightly, then relaxed. It's too quiet, too safe. She poured herself a glass of water. In the shelter, there's always noise, people arguing, crying, doors slamming. Before that, on the streets, I'd sleep with one eye open. I leaned against the door frame. You'll get used to it. Will I? She sipped her water. My whole life I've been waiting for the other shoe to drop, for whatever good thing I have to be taken away. She looked at me. Even now, after today, I keep thinking you'll change your mind. About you staying here, I won't. But I'm a reminder of something painful. Your son rejecting his own daughter. How can you look at me and not think of that? I crossed the kitchen and took her hands in mine. Lucia, listen to me. When I look at you, I don't see Diego's mistakes. I see a bright, resilient young woman who deserves every good thing that's been denied her. I squeezed her hands. And maybe this is selfish, but I've been lonely since Javier died. Having you here makes this place feel like a home again. What if he comes back? Decides to make trouble? Then we'll handle it together. I smiled. I may be an old lady, but I've still got some fight in me." That drew a small laugh from her. "You're not old. 62 isn't exactly young. My mom would have been 43 now." Her voice grew quiet. "Sometimes I wonder who she might have been if things had been different. If she'd gotten help, or if my father had—" She stopped, shook her head. "It doesn't matter now. It matters if it helps you understand." She was silent for a moment. "When I was little, I used to make up stories about my dad. He was a soldier who died heroically, or a secret agent on a mission he could never return from." Her laugh was bitter. "The reality's a lot less impressive, isn't it? Just a guy who didn't want to be bothered." "I'm sorry you had to hear that." "I'm not." She set her glass down firmly. "At least now I know. I'm not wondering anymore, making up stories. The truth is better even if it hurts." I nodded. "Get some sleep if you can. Tomorrow's a new day." "Good night, Elena." She hesitated. "Or should I call you abuela?" The Spanish word for grandmother felt tentative on her lips. Warmth spread through my chest. "Abuela would be perfect if you'd like." Her smile was small but genuine. "Good night, abuela." "Good night, nieta." The next morning felt like the beginning of something new. We opened the store together, moved through the familiar routines with a different energy. The truth was out, painful as it was, and now we could build something real. A week after Diego's rejection, I helped Lucia enroll in Boulder's alternative high school program for students in unique circumstances. The principal was sympathetic to her situation, and with my legal backing as her guardian, the enrollment process was smoother than expected. "I'll probably be behind," Lucia worried as we left the school office. "You're smart, you'll catch up." I squeezed her shoulder. "And we'll get tutoring if you need it." "This feels weird," she admitted. "Having an adult actually care about my education. Make plans." "Get used to it," I told her with a smile. "This is what family does." December arrived, bringing snow and holiday shoppers. Pagina's saw an increase in customers drawn by Lucia's creative window displays and social media promotions. She'd started a secret book Santa program where customers could purchase books to be donated to children in the local shelter. "This is genius," I told her one evening as we wrapped the donated books. "We've sold more this week than in the past 3 Decembers combined." She shrugged, but I could see she was pleased. "It's just marketing, and helping kids who don't have much. Like you used to be." "Yeah." She tied a ribbon around a copy of Harry Potter. "Books saved me when everything else was falling apart. Every kid deserves that escape." Christmas approached, and I realized with a pang that this would be Lucia's first real Christmas in years, possibly ever, given what she'd told me about her childhood. One night I brought down the box of decorations from the attic ornaments Javier and I had collected over 4 decades, strings of lights, the small nativity scene from my childhood in Spain. "We're decorating?" Lucia asked, eyes wide, as I set the box on the living room floor. "It's a tradition." I pulled out a faded felt stocking with my name embroidered on it, and another with Javier's. "I haven't done this since before Javier died." Her face softened. "You don't have to because of me." "I want to." I handed her a tangle of lights. "Help me with these." We spent the evening decorating the apartment above the bookstore, Lucia listening intently as I told stories behind each ornament. When we finished, the small space glowed with warm lights and memories. "I should get you a stocking," I said suddenly, "with your name." She looked at me, her eyes shining. "Really?" "Of course. Your family." The next day I closed the store early and took her shopping. We bought not just a stocking, but new clothes proper, winter boots, art supplies for her writing, and books, so many books that were now hers, not borrowed from the store. "This is too much," she protested as we carried the bags home. "It's Christmas, and it's your first one with me." I linked my arm through hers. "Let me spoil my granddaughter a little." On Christmas morning, I woke to the smell of coffee and found Lucia in the kitchen attempting to make Spanish churros from a recipe she'd found online. "They're not quite right," she said apologetically, gesturing to the misshapen pastries. "But I wanted to try something from your culture." I felt tears prick my eyes. "They're perfect." Later, as we exchanged gifts by our small tree, I gave her a leather-bound journal with her name embossed on the cover. "For your stories," I said. She ran her fingers over the soft leather. "It's beautiful." "Open it." Inside, on the first page, I'd written to my Lucia, who brought light back into my life. "Your stories matter. Your voice matters. You matter. With all my love, abuela. She looked up, tears spilling onto her cheeks. I didn't get you anything this special. You gave me family again, I said simply. That's the greatest gift I could receive. Lucia's gift to me was a framed photograph she'd taken of Pagunas at sunset, the windows glowing with light books visible through the glass. So you'll always remember what you built, she said, what you preserved. I hung it that day in the center of our living room wall. January brought brutal Colorado cold and new beginnings. Lucia started classes, throwing herself into her studies with the same determination she brought to everything. She worked afternoons at the bookstore, did homework in the evenings, and still found time to help me implement her ideas for growing our business. We should start a book subscription service, she suggested one snowy afternoon. Curated boxes for different readers. I raised an eyebrow. Like Diego wanted to do. No, not like that. She shook her head emphatically. His was about lifestyle products with books as an afterthought. I'm talking about real personalized recommendations from booksellers who actually care. The irony wasn't lost on me that my granddaughter's idea might succeed where my son's had failed. It would take work, I cautioned. I can do it. Her confidence had grown these past months. I'll create a questionnaire for customers, build subscription profiles. We can start small, maybe 20 subscribers. Let's try it. Within a month, Pagunas Personalized had 37 subscribers paying $35 monthly for books selected specifically for their tastes. Lucia wrote personal notes for each package explaining why she'd chosen that particular book for that particular reader. The reviews were glowing. People posted photos of their packages on social media, praising the thoughtfulness of the selections. Our subscriber list grew to 50, then 75. For the first time in years, Pagunas was not just surviving, but thriving. Lucia continued to excel in school, impressing her teachers with her insights and writing ability. Her English teacher, Ms. Chen, called me after receiving Lucia's personal essay assignment. Has Lucia considered applying to college early? She asked. Her writing is remarkable. With her life experiences and literary voice, she could be competitive for scholarships. She's only 16, I replied, surprised. She hasn't even finished high school. She's academically advanced despite her interrupted education. We could create an accelerated plan. Ms. Chen paused. I don't often say this, Ms. Vega, but your granddaughter has something special. A gift. That night I mentioned the conversation to Lucia. College. She looked up from her homework. I hadn't really thought that far ahead. I was just focusing on graduating high school. Ms. Chen thinks you have exceptional talent. She believes you could qualify for scholarships. Lucia bit her lip. I don't know if I'm ready for that. And college is expensive even with scholarships. We'll figure it out. I sat beside her at the kitchen table. What matters is what you want. I want to write, she said softly. I've been working on something, a novel, I guess, about my mom, about me. It's probably terrible. I doubt that. Would you let me read it? She hesitated. It's not finished, and it's raw, about the addiction, about what it was like finding her. I'd be honored to read it whenever you're ready to share. She nodded. Maybe when it's done. Spring brought warmer days and more changes. Lucia's subscription service had grown to over 100 members, bringing steady income to the bookstore. She'd started a weekly writing group that met in our back room, attracting both teenagers and adults interested in creative writing. In April, she turned 17. I closed the store for the day and took her to Denver, where we visited the tattered cover bookstore. Her request, had lunch at a fancy restaurant, my insistence, and attended a reading by one of her favorite authors. Best birthday ever, she declared on the drive-home window, down her hand riding the air currents. Thank you, abuela. You deserve it, nieta. I glanced at her profile, struck by how much she'd changed in 5 months. Her face had filled out, no longer gaunt from hunger and stress. Her eyes were brighter, her smile came more easily. She looked like a normal teenager, though I knew she'd never truly be normal after everything she'd experienced. That night after we returned home, she handed me a stack of papers held together with binder clips. It's not finished, she said nervously, but if you still want to read it, her manuscript. I took it reverently. I'll start tonight. I stayed up until 3 in the morning, unable to put it down. Her writing was stunning, raw and honest, filled with both pain and surprising beauty. She wrote about her mother's addiction with compassion, but without romanticism about her own role as a child caretaker with clear-eyed precision. The narrative was non-linear, moving between her early childhood the day she found her mother dead and her time in foster care and on the streets. The next morning I found her waiting anxiously in the kitchen. "Well," she asked, not meeting my eyes. "Lucia," I said, my voice thick with emotion, "this is extraordinary." She looked up. "Really? You're not just saying that? I've sold books for 40 years. I know good writing when I see it." I placed the manuscript carefully on the table. "This is better than good. It's exceptional. There's so much more I need to do with it." "Of course. First drafts are just the beginning, but the foundation is solid, more than solid." I reached for her hand. "When you're ready, there are people who should see this. Agents, editors." Her eyes widened. "You think it could be published?" "I do, but that's not why you should finish it." "Why then?" "Because it's your story and it deserves to be told. For you first, for readers second." She nodded slowly. "I'll keep working on it." "Take all the time you need." Throughout that spring and summer, Lucia divided her time between school, the bookstore, and her writing. I watched her mature, gaining confidence not just in her abilities, but in her place in the world. The fearful girl who'd walked into Paginas was becoming a self-assured young woman who knew her worth. In August, she graduated high school a year early, having completed an accelerated program with honors. I sat in the audience, bursting with pride as she walked across the stage in her cap and gown. "I wish Javier could see this," I whispered to myself. He would have loved her. After the ceremony, as we took photos outside, I caught Lucia scanning the crowd, a momentary shadow crossing her face. "What is it?" I asked. She shook her head. "Nothing. Just, for a second I thought maybe he'd come. Diego, it's stupid." My heart ached for her. "It's not stupid, it's human." "It doesn't matter." She squared her shoulders. "The people who matter are here." That evening we celebrated with dinner at home, joined by Ms. Chen and Marco from the cafe next door, who'd become something of a surrogate uncle to Lucia. I'd invited a few other friends, my bookselling colleagues from other stores, neighbors who'd watched Lucia grow these past months. As we shared dessert, Ms. Chen raised her glass. "To Lucia, who reminds us that it's never too late for new beginnings." "To new beginnings," everyone echoed, "aid." Later, when our guests had gone, Lucia helped me clean up the kitchen. "I've been thinking about college," she said casually. "CU Boulder has a good creative writing program." I looked at her. "You'd stay in Boulder?" "If that's okay. I could live in the dorms if you want your space back." "This is your home for as long as you want it," I said firmly, "and selfishly I'd love to have you close." "Good, because I've already applied for spring admission." She grinned. Ms. Chen helped me with the application, and I got this. She pulled an envelope from her pocket and handed it to me. Inside was a letter offering her a substantial merit scholarship. I looked up, eyes wide. "Lucia, this is amazing. It's not a full ride, but it's enough that with my savings from the bookstore I should be okay." She leaned against the counter. "And I can still help with Paginas." "We'll make it work," I assured her. "I'm so proud of you." She ducked her head, still uncomfortable with praise. "Thanks for believing in me." "Always," I promised. "Always." Fall brought change to Boulder leaves, turning gold and crimson students returning to the university, a crispness in the air that spoke of endings and beginnings. Lucia spent her final months before college polishing her manuscript and expanding the bookstore's programming. Her book club had grown so popular, we had to create a sign-up system and divide it into age groups. The young adult division was her favorite teenagers from backgrounds similar to hers, finding community and voice through literature. "I see myself in them," she told me one evening after a particularly lively discussion. "What I might have been if I'd had this earlier." "You're giving them what you didn't have," I pointed out. "That's a gift." In October, Lucia announced she'd finished her manuscript. "I think it's done," she said, placing the thick stack of paper on the kitchen table. "At least as done as I can make it." "May I read the final version?" She nodded. "I want you to, but—" She hesitated. "I added something. A new section about finding you, about Diego." "Oh. Is that okay? I can take it out." "No, it's your story. Tell it honestly." I picked up the manuscript. "All of it." I read through the night again, captivated by the power of her revised work. The new section about discovering her father was alive. His rejection and finding unexpected family with me was written with the same unflinching honesty as the rest. She didn't vilify Diego, but she didn't spare him either. What happens next? I asked the following morning. I don't know. She poured coffee for both of us. I've researched the publishing process a little. We need to find an agent, I think. I have some connections, I offered. Former customers who work in publishing. Let me make some calls. Those calls led to a list of agents who specialized in literary fiction and memoirs. Lucia crafted a query letter with my help, and we began the submission process. I warned her about the likelihood of rejection, that even brilliant work often faced multiple no's before finding the right match. I've faced worse rejection than form letters, she said wryly. Still, the first few rejections stung. I found her one evening staring at her computer, shoulders slumped. Another no, she nodded. This one actually read it, said it was impressive but not commercially viable. I sat beside her. What does that even mean? That no one wants to read about a drug addict's daughter? She closed her laptop. Maybe this was a waste of time. It wasn't. I placed my hand over hers. The right agent is out there, someone who sees what I see. And if they're not, then we keep writing. We keep trying. Your voice deserves to be heard, Lucia. She gave me a small smile. Our bookstore subscription service is doing well, at least. Maybe that's enough. Is it enough for you? She was quiet for a moment. No, I want people to read my story, to understand what it's like, not just the pain, but the moments of grace, too. She straightened her shoulders. I'll keep submitting. November brought 2 developments. First, Lucia received her official acceptance to CU Boulder's spring semester. Second, after 27 rejections, an agent named Gabriela Reyes responded to her query with enthusiasm. She wants to read the full manuscript, Lucia announced, bursting into the store during a quiet afternoon. A real agent from a real agency. She represents Carmen Maria Machado and Elizabeth Acevedo. That's wonderful. I hugged her tightly. I told you the right person would see it. We sent the manuscript that day. 3 weeks later, Gabriela called asking to meet with Lucia in person. I offered to close the store and drive her to Denver, where Gabriela was visiting family for the holidays. I can go alone, Lucia insisted. I'm almost 18. I know you can, but I'd like to be there if you want me. Her relief was palpable. I do. The meeting took place in a small coffee shop in downtown Denver. Gabriela was younger than I expected, perhaps in her early 30s, with a warm smile and sharp eyes. She stood to greet us, shaking both our hands firmly. Lucia, it's an honor to meet you, she said. Your manuscript is extraordinary. We sat, ordered coffee, and Gabriela got straight to the point. I want to represent you, she said. Your voice is unlike anything I've read in years. Raw, honest, but with a compassion that elevates it beyond mere trauma narrative. Lucia blinked rapidly, her hands wrapped tightly around her mug. You really think it could be published? I do. Gabriela leaned forward. It won't be easy. The publishing industry can be conservative, especially with new voices. But I believe in this book. I believe in you. What would happen next? I asked. I'd work with Lucia on some minor revisions, then submit to editors at publishing houses. It could take months to find the right match. There might be more rejection before we get there. She looked directly at Lucia. Are you prepared for that? Yes. Lucia's voice was firm. I've survived worse than rejection letters. Gabriela smiled. That's exactly the spirit I was hoping for. They discussed terms, the standard 15% commission, the submission strategy, timeline, expectations. Throughout, I watched my granddaughter hold her own, asking intelligent questions, taking notes. One last thing, Gabriela said as our meeting concluded. The section about your father, it's powerful. But are you prepared for potential legal issues if the book is published? He might not appreciate being portrayed even if you change his name. Lucia glanced at me, then back to Gabriela. He gave up any right to control my narrative when he chose not to be part of my life. I'm not writing anything untrue. Gabriela nodded approvingly. Good answer. I'll draw up the contract and email it to you this week. As we drove back to Boulder, Lucia was quiet, staring out at the mountains on the horizon. Having second thoughts? I asked. No. She turned to me. Just processing. It feels surreal. 6 months ago I was homeless with no future. Now I'm going to college and might publish a book. She shook her head in wonder. And I found my grandmother. You found yourself, I corrected gently. I was just lucky enough to be here when you did. December brought snow holiday shoppers and Lucia's 18th birthday. I closed the store for the day and made her favorite meal paella, a recipe from my childhood in Spain. Marco brought a cake and Ms. Chen joined us for dinner. To Lucia, I raised my glass. 18 years young and already changing the world. Hardly the world, she demurred. My world, I said softly. And that's a start. Later, after our guests had left, I gave Lucia her gift, a small box containing a key. What's this? She asked. The key to Páginas. I've had the paperwork drawn up to make you co-owner of the bookstore. She stared at me. Abuela, I can't accept this. You can and you will. I closed her fingers around the key. You've poured your heart into that store. Your subscription service saved it. This makes official what's already true. But it's yours and Javier's. And now it's yours too. I smiled. Consider it an investment in your future. Whatever path you choose, writer, bookseller, something else entirely, Páginas will be part of your foundation. Tears filled her eyes. I don't know what to say. Say you'll take care of our legacy. I promise. She hugged me fiercely. Thank you, Abuela, for everything. January arrived with news from Gabriela. The revised manuscript was ready for submission to publishers. We'll start with the Big Five, she explained on a conference call, but I've also got a list of independent presses that might be a perfect fit. How long does this process usually take? Lucia asked. She was balancing preparation for her first college semester with her continued work at the bookstore. It varies widely. Sometimes we hear back in weeks, sometimes months. The good news is I've already had interest based on my pitch. Editors are intrigued by your story. For the next 6 weeks, we existed in a state of anticipation. Lucia threw herself into her college classes determined to excel, despite her unconventional educational background. I managed the bookstore with help from a part-time employee we'd hired to cover the hours Lucia was in class. The rejections came first 6 in quick succession. Too intense for our list, one editor wrote. Beautifully written, but not right for us, said another. Lucia took each one in stride, more resilient than I would have been at her age. They're actually reading it, she noted after the 4th rejection. They're taking the time to respond personally. Gabriela says that's a good sign. In early March, Gabriela called with news. A small but prestigious literary press was interested. They love the manuscript, she reported. The editor Sylvia Klein particularly connected with the sections about finding your grandmother and rebuilding family. She has some editorial suggestions, but nothing major. What does this mean? Lucia asked, her voice cautious. It means they want to make an offer. Gabriela couldn't keep the excitement from her voice. It won't be a huge advance, they're a small press, but they'll give the book the attention and care it deserves. 2 days later, the official offer came through, a modest advance of $10,000, but with terms that respected Lucia's vision for the book. We celebrated that night with champagne, toasting to dreams becoming reality. I never thought this would actually happen, Lucia admitted, her cheeks flushed with excitement and sparkling wine. Even when I finished it, even when Gabriela took me on, it didn't seem real. Believe it, I told her. This is just the beginning. The contract arrived the following week, thick with legal language. I insisted we have a lawyer review it before signing, a precaution Lucia found amusing but necessary. I've never owned anything worth protecting before, she remarked as we left the lawyer's office, contract approved and signed. It's a strange feeling. Get used to it, I advised. You're a property owner and now an author with a book contract. You're building a life piece by piece. Spring unfurled in Boulder, painting the city with new green and fragrant blossoms. Lucia thrived in her college classes, particularly in her creative writing workshops, where professors quickly recognized her talent. At the bookstore, our programming continued to expand under her direction: author events, writing workshops, community outreach to local schools. In April, Sylvia Klein, Lucia's editor, came to Boulder to meet her in person. They spent hours at a cafe near campus discussing editorial direction and marketing plans. Lucia returned energized and slightly overwhelmed. She wants me to dig deeper into some sections, she reported, especially about Mom and her addiction, to humanize her more, and she loves the new sections about finding you. How do you feel about the changes she's suggesting? Lucia considered this. They make sense. They're not changing my voice, just asking me to use it more fully. She looked at me. She asked if I'd consider doing readings when the book comes out. Bookstore events. That's standard, and you'd be wonderful at it. Would we host one at Pagina's? Of course. It would be the launch venue. I smiled at the thought of it, Lucia reading from her book in the store where we found each other. A perfect full circle. As summer approached, Lucia worked on her revisions while continuing her studies and bookstore responsibilities. I marveled at her capacity for hard work, her determination to excel at everything she touched. The frightened, hungry girl who'd walked into my bookstore was now a confident young woman with a future stretching bright before her. One evening in late May, as we closed up the store together, Lucia asked the question I'd been dreading. Do you think we should tell him about the book? I didn't need to ask who him was. Why would you want to? I don't know. She straightened a display of new releases. Legal reasons maybe, or just basic courtesy. He forfeited courtesy when he walked out that door. My voice was sharper than I intended. I know, but I'm putting our family story into the world. His name won't be in it. I'm changing those details, but people might figure it out. I sighed. What does Gabriella say? That legally we're on solid ground. Everything I've written is true, and I'm changing identifying details. She looked at me. This isn't about him, Abuela. It's about me having control of my own story. I nodded slowly. Then no, I don't think we need to tell him. But I'll support whatever you decide. She seemed relieved. Thank you. I think I just needed permission not to feel guilty about it. You have nothing to feel guilty about, Nieta. Nothing at all. As we locked up and headed upstairs to our apartment, I reflected on how far we'd come in 18 months. From strangers connected by a DNA test to a family bound by choice as much as blood. From a struggling bookstore to a thriving community hub. From a homeless teen to a college student with a book contract. The journey hadn't been easy. There had been nightmares and tears, moments when Lucia's past trauma surfaced unexpectedly. There had been financial stress and long hours of work. There had been the shadow of Diego's rejection, a wound that would never fully heal. But there had also been joy, deep unexpected joy in finding each other and building something new from the broken pieces of our lives. In discovering that family isn't always who you're born to, but who you choose to love. As we settled in the living room with tea, Lucia working on her laptop, me with a book, I silently thanked whatever twist of fate had brought her to my door that November day. I didn't know what the future held, what challenges and triumphs awaited us, but I knew we would face them together. My granddaughter, my family, my second chance at love. 5 years passed like turning pages in a well-loved book. Lucia graduated from CU Boulder with honors, her literary career blossoming alongside her work at Pagina's. Her memoir, Searching for Sophia, was published to critical acclaim when she was 19. Though sales were modest at first, the book found its audience particularly among young people who had experienced parental addiction or foster care. By 23, Lucia had published her second book, a novel exploring themes of chosen family and belonging that received stronger commercial success. Her third book, released just months ago, had earned a spot on the New York Times bestseller list, catapulting her from respected literary voice to genuine literary star. Pagina's had transformed from a struggling neighborhood bookstore into a thriving cultural hub. The subscription service now had over 500 members across the country. We'd expanded into the vacant storefront next door, creating a cafe and event space that hosted readings, writing workshops, and support groups for at-risk youth. Lucia had established a foundation providing creative writing opportunities for children in foster care, funded by a percentage of her book proceeds. I was now 67 with more silver than black in my hair, but I felt younger than I had in decades. The purpose and joy Lucia brought to my life kept me energized, even as I gradually handed more responsibility for the store's operations to her. You should retire, Lucia would tease as we balanced the monthly accounts together. And do what sit around watching telenovelas all day, I'd counter. I'll slow down when I'm dead. Our life together had found its rhythm, comfortable, purposeful, filled with books and words and the community we'd built. The shadow of Diego's rejection had faded, though never completely disappeared. Occasionally, I'd catch Lucia watching fathers with their daughters, a flicker of old pain crossing her face before she pushed it away. Do you ever think about trying to contact him again? I asked once after we'd encountered a particularly touching father-daughter scene at a local restaurant. No, she'd said firmly. He made his choice. I've made mine. And so we continued, the two of us building our lives around each other and the bookstore that had brought us together. Until the day everything changed again. It began with an interview, a feature in Literal magazine focusing on Latina literary voices. The journalist had spent a day at Páginas photographing Lucia among the bookshelves, recording her story from homeless teen to best-selling author. The piece was thoughtful and comprehensive, tracing her journey from Santa Fe to Boulder, her discovery of her grandmother, and her path to literary success. "They want me to talk about Mom," Lucia had worried during preparation for the interview. "About finding her body, about the addiction." "You've written about it beautifully in your books," I reminded her. "You know how to tell your story with honesty and compassion." "And Diego, they'll ask about my father." "Tell as much or as little as you choose. It's your story to tell." The article was published on a Tuesday in October. By Wednesday morning, it had been shared thousands of times online, with particular attention to Lucia's story of abandonment and reconciliation. The photographs were striking Lucia in the poetry corner of Páginas, surrounded by books. Lucia and me together at the register. Lucia leading a writing workshop for foster youth. "This is good publicity for the store," I noted as we reviewed the online reactions over breakfast. "And for the foundation," Lucia agreed. She scrolled through comments on her phone. People seem really moved by it. 3 days after the article appeared, the email arrived. Lucia was upstairs in our apartment when her phone chimed with the notification. I heard her sudden intake of breath, then silence. "Lucia," I called up the stairs. "Everything okay?" She appeared at the top of the staircase, face pale, phone clutched in her hand. "He emailed me." I didn't need to ask who he was. "What does he want?" She descended slowly as if moving through water. "To meet. He says he read the article, says he's been following my career from afar, that he's—" her voice caught. "That he's proud of me." Anger flared in my chest, hot, protective. After 8 years of silence, now he's proud. He says he was wrong, that he regrets how he handled everything. She handed me the phone. The message was brief but carefully worded. "Lucia, I read your interview in Literal magazine. I've actually been following your writing career since your first book was published, though I've respected your space by not reaching out until now. What I did 8 years ago was unforgivable. I was selfish and afraid, and I've regretted it every day since. You've become an extraordinary woman despite my absence, not because of it, and the credit goes to you and to my mother. I don't expect forgiveness, but I would welcome the opportunity to meet if you're willing. I understand completely if you're not." "Diego Vega," I handed the phone back, struggling to keep my expression neutral. "What are you thinking?" Lucia sat at the bottom of the stairs, her face a complex mixture of emotions. "I don't know. Part of me wants to delete it and block him forever. And the other part wants to know why." She looked up at me. "Why now? Why wait until I'm successful to suddenly develop paternal interest?" "That's a fair question. Do you think I should meet him?" I chose my words carefully. "That's entirely your decision, Nieta. You're not a vulnerable teenager anymore. You're a strong, successful woman with a life you've built on your own terms." I sat beside her on the stair. "Whatever you decide, I'll support you." "But you don't trust him." "No," I admitted. "I don't. The timing is convenient." She nodded slowly. "That's what I thought too." She stared at her phone. "But what if he's genuinely sorry? What if people can change?" I put my arm around her shoulders. "They can, but genuine change doesn't usually happen without hard work and accountability. I think—" She took a deep breath. "I think I want to meet him, just once, to hear what he has to say." "Then that's what you should do." "Will you be upset if I do?" I squeezed her shoulder. "I just want you to protect your heart, Lucia. You've worked too hard building your life to let anyone, even your father, disrupt it." She leaned against me. "I'll be careful, I promise." Lucia arranged to meet Diego at a neutral location, a coffee shop downtown, public enough to feel safe but quiet enough for conversation. I offered to go with her. "I need to do this alone," she said firmly, "but thank you." The morning of the meeting, she dressed with unusual care, dark jeans, a crisp white blouse, hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. Professional, polished, successful. "How do I look?" she asked, turning in the kitchen doorway. "Beautiful. Strong." I kissed her cheek. "Remember who you are." "I will." She picked up her notebook, a habit from her writing that had become something of a security blanket. "Wish me luck." Call me if you need me. For anything. 3 hours later, she returned. I was straightening shelves in the fiction section when she walked in, her expression unreadable. How did it go? I asked, setting down the books I was holding. It was strange. She leaned against a bookshelf. He looks older, grayer, but still the same. What did he say? That he's sorry, that watching my success from afar made him realize what he threw away. She shook her head slightly. He brought copies of all my books, asked me to sign them. And how did that make you feel? I don't know. Validated, angry, both. She crossed her arms. He said he never stopped thinking about me, that he's followed my career since he saw a review of my first book and realized it was me. Do you believe him? She hesitated. I want to, but there's something off, like he's performing regret rather than feeling it. Relief washed through me, though I tried not to show it. Lucia's instincts were good. What happens now? He wants to meet again, get to know each other. She pushed off from the bookshelf, pacing a small circle. Part of me wants to tell him to go to hell, but another part wants a father, I finished gently. Is that pathetic after everything? It's human, Nieta, completely human. She nodded slowly. I said I'd think about it, that I needed time. That's wise. He asked about you, how you are. Did he now? I couldn't keep the skepticism from my voice. He said he regrets how things ended between you two. 8 years of silence says otherwise. Lucia studied me. You really don't trust him. I trust you to make your own decisions, I said carefully. You're an adult, and this is your relationship to navigate, not mine. But, I sighed. But no, I don't trust him. His timing is too convenient, Lucia. You're successful now. Your books are selling, you're getting attention, you have money. You think that's what this is about, money. I think it's worth considering his motives. She was quiet for a moment. I'm going to see him again, just to explore this, see if there's anything real there. Okay? You're not going to try to stop me. Would it work if I did? A small smile. Probably not. Then I'll save my breath. I took her hand. Just promise me you'll be careful. With your heart and with your trust. I promise. That was the beginning of what Lucia called the Diego experiment. She began meeting him for coffee once a week, each time returning with mixed feelings, hope mingled with suspicion, longing with resentment. Diego was charming, attentive, seemingly eager to make amends. He brought photos today, she told me after their third meeting, of himself when he was my age, of you and Javier when you were young. Did he now? I couldn't help the dryness in my tone. He talked about growing up in the bookstore, about how he used to hide in the mystery section and read when he was supposed to be helping customers. I remembered those days Diego as a boy before ambition and selfishness hardened him. He was a good reader, I acknowledged, when he applied himself. He said you taught him to love books, that everything good in him came from you and Abuelo. Flattery was always one of his talents. Lucia gave me a reproachful look. Abuela. I'm sorry. I'm trying to be supportive, but it's difficult. I know. She squeezed my hand. And I hear your concerns. I'm being careful, I promise. 2 weeks later, Diego appeared at Páginas for the first time in 8 years. I was alone at the register when he walked in, the bell above the door announcing his arrival. He'd aged gray at his temples, lines around his eyes, but still carried himself with the same confidence. Mom, a nod not quite meeting my eyes. Diego, my voice was cooler than the October air outside. Lucia's not here. I know, I came to see you. That surprised me. Did you? Can we talk, please? I gestured to the small seating area we'd created near the front window. 5 minutes. We sat across from each other, the distance between us greater than the small table that separated us. You've done an amazing job with her, he said after an awkward silence. With Lucia, she's incredible. She was incredible when she walked through that door at 16. I just gave her a safe place to be herself. He nodded. I deserved that. What do you want, Diego? He shifted in his seat. To apologize. For what I did to Lucia to you. I was wrong. Yes, you were. I'm trying to make amends. Are you... I studied his face, looking for sincerity. Or are you trying to associate yourself with her success? His expression hardened slightly before smoothing into contrition. I understand your suspicion. I haven't earned your trust. No, you haven't. But I'd like to try, for Lucia's sake. Lucia is an adult. She can make her own decisions about who belongs in her life. Including you. The words had a slight edge. I met his gaze steadily. I've been here for her every day for 8 years. Where were you? He looked away first. I made a terrible mistake. I want to fix it. Some things can't be fixed, Diego. Some choices have permanent consequences. I don't believe that. I can't. He stood up. Tell Lucia I stopped by. If you'd like. He paused at the door. The bookstore looks good. You've done well. We have, I agreed. Lucia and I together. After he left, I sat for a long moment trying to process the encounter. Something felt off his apology, too practiced, his contrition too calculated. But I couldn't put my finger on exactly what was wrong. That evening I mentioned his visit to Lucia. He came here. She looked surprised. He didn't tell me he was going to do that. He wanted to apologize. To me. Did you accept it? No. She nodded slowly. I understand why. She hesitated. He's invited me to dinner next week, at his house, to meet his partner. This was news. He's in a relationship. Apparently. Her name is Vanessa. They've been together about a year. Are you comfortable with that, going to his home? I think so. It feels like the next step. She bit her lip. Would you come with me? Relief flooded me. Of course, if you want me there. I do, very much. Diego's house was in North Boulder, a sleek modern structure with large windows and minimalist landscaping. Expensive but not ostentatious, it spoke of careful wealth. Vanessa greeted us at the door, tall, blonde, carefully maintained in that way of women who spend significant time and money on their appearance. Her smile was warm, if slightly nervous. Lucia Elena, welcome. She ushered us in. Diego's just finishing up a work call. He'll be right down. Can I get you something to drink? The evening progressed with strained politeness. Diego played the attentive host, telling carefully selected stories from his past, asking Lucia thoughtful questions about her writing process, complimenting the transformation of páginas. Vanessa was gracious but quiet, watching the dynamic between father and daughter with curious eyes. Lucia tells me you're working on your 4th book, Diego said as we finished the main course, an elaborate paella that I suspected had been catered rather than homemade. Yes, it's still in early stages. Lucia was guarded about her work in progress, as most writers are. What's the advance like on something like that, now that you're on the bestseller list? The question landed like a stone in still water. I saw Lucia stiffen slightly. That's not really dinner conversation, she replied lightly. Of course I'm sorry. Diego backtracked smoothly. I'm just proud. Curious about the business side. Diego has always been interested in the financial aspects of creative work. Vanessa offered a slight edge to her voice. He's a numbers person. How is your business doing? I asked, redirecting. Lucia mentioned you have a tech startup. A shadow crossed his face. It's been challenging. The market's volatile right now. Diego's company is going through a restructuring phase. Vanessa explained, her smile tight. But we're optimistic. The conversation shifted to safer territory, but I filed away the exchange for later consideration. When we left, Diego embraced Lucia, warmly held her at arm's length. I'm so glad we're finding our way back to each other, he said. It's early days, Lucia replied, her smile polite but reserved. In the car, she was quiet until we turned onto Pearl Street. He asked about my advance. I noticed. And the restructuring comment from Vanessa. Also noticed, she sighed. You think he's in financial trouble? It crossed my mind. Mine too. She stared out the window. I want to believe he's sincere, Abuela, that he regrets what he did, that he wants a relationship with me for me. I know you do. But the timing, showing up right after the article about my success, the questions about money. Trust your instincts, Nita. They're good ones. She nodded slowly. I'm going to keep seeing him, but I'll be careful. Over the next month, Diego's presence in Lucia's life expanded. He attended one of her readings at a Denver bookstore, sitting in the front row, applauding enthusiastically. He began stopping by páginas more frequently, always when Lucia was working, bringing coffee or lunch, asking about her writing her foundation work. I watched from a distance, noting how he positioned himself in photographs as Lucia Navarro's father, how he mentioned their relationship to anyone who would listen. I saw the hungry way he observed her interactions with fans, with her agent, with publishing industry people who occasionally visited the store. He's integrating himself into your professional life very efficiently, I remarked one evening after he'd attended a book club meeting where Lucia was the featured speaker. Is that so terrible if he's genuinely proud of me? Not terrible, just convenient, she sighed. You're determined to think the worst of him. I'm determined to protect you from being hurt again. I can protect myself now, Abuela. I'm not a vulnerable teenager anymore. I know that. I do. I touched her hand. I just want you to go into this with open eyes. My eyes are open, she assured me. Wide open. 2 months into their renewed relationship, the other shoe dropped. Lucia came home from coffee with Diego, her expression troubled. What happened? I asked, setting aside the inventory spreadsheet I'd been reviewing. He told me about his business troubles. She sank into the chair across from me. His latest startup is failing. He's burned through his investors' money and they're pulling out. I see. He needs a loan to keep it afloat until they can secure new funding. There it was. How much? $200,000. She looked at me, her eyes clouded. He said he wouldn't ask, but I'm family and he's desperate. And what did you say? That I'd think about it? She rubbed her temples. He showed me the business plan. It's for a subscription box service lifestyle products for young professionals. The same idea he'd wanted me to sell paginas for 8 years ago. What does your gut tell you? That it's suspicious? She looked up at me, pain evident in her eyes. But what if I'm wrong? What if he is genuine, and this is just bad timing? Do I let my father's business fail when I have the means to help? Do you have that much liquid cash available? Between my advances, royalties, and savings, yes. She'd been careful with her money, investing wisely, living modestly despite her success. The foundation would be fine that's separately incorporated. This would be from my personal funds. It's your money, Lucia. You earned it. You get to decide how to use it. But you think it would be a mistake. I chose my words carefully. I think the pattern is concerning. He reappears when you're successful. He integrates himself into your professional life. He positions himself to benefit from your connections. And now he asks for money. When you put it that way, but it's not my decision. It's yours. She nodded slowly. I need time to think. Take all the time you need. That night I lay awake, worry gnawing at me. I believed in Lucia's judgment, but I also knew the powerful pull of wanting paternal love and approval. Diego had abandoned her once. I couldn't bear to watch him hurt her again. An idea formed as I stared at the ceiling. Risky, potentially damaging, but perhaps necessary. If Diego was using Lucia, if his renewed interest was purely financial, I needed proof, concrete evidence she couldn't dismiss or rationalize away. The next morning, after Lucia left for her writing group, I called Diego. Mom, he sounded surprised. Is everything okay? Is Lucia? She's fine. I need to see you, alone. What's this about? It's best discussed in person. Can you come to the bookstore today? Around 4. I'll close early. A pause. All right, I'll be there. I spent the day in a state of controlled tension, going through the motions of running the store while rehearsing what I would say. At 3:30, I sent Lucia a text. Can you come to the store at 4:15? Don't come inside right away. I need your help with something important. Her response came quickly. Sure, everything okay? Everything's fine. I'll explain later. At 4 o'clock, I locked the front door and flipped the sign to closed. Diego arrived precisely on time, knocking when he found the door locked. I let him in, my heart racing. What's going on, Mom? He seemed wary. Sit down, Diego. I gestured to the reading area. We need to talk. He sat watching me with guarded eyes. Is this about the loan? Did Lucia tell you? In a way. I took the chair across from him. I've been thinking about what you said when you visited me, about making amends. Yes. His posture relaxed slightly. You were right. Some relationships can be repaired. I took a deep breath. I'm getting older, Diego. Running this store even with Lucia's help is becoming more than I can manage. Interest flickered in his eyes. What are you saying? I'm saying I'm ready to sell paginas. He sat up straighter. Really? After all this time? I've held on long enough. It's time to let go. I leaned forward. The property values in this area have increased significantly. The store is worth at least $1.2 million now, possibly more. Diego's expression remained carefully neutral, but I saw the calculation happening behind his eyes. That's substantial. And I've been thinking about what to do with the money. I paused for effect. I could give it to you. All of it. Now his eyes widened. Why would you do that? One condition. What condition? I met his gaze directly. You disappear from Lucia's life. Completely. No contact. You walk away and never come back. He stared at me, shock giving way to something darker. You can't be serious. Completely serious. The bookstore and all proceeds from its sale in exchange for you leaving Lucia alone. She's an adult. She can make her own choices. Then make yours. The bookstore or your daughter? Silence stretched between us. I watched emotions flicker across his face, surprise, calculation, decision. Finally he spoke. Deal. Though I'd expected it, the word still felt like a physical blow. Just like that. Look, Mom, let's be realistic. His tone shifted, became more pragmatic. She got this far without me. She's got her career, her books. She doesn't really need a father at this point. That's your daughter you're talking about. That's $1.2 million you're offering. He leaned forward. When would I get the money? After the sale. A few months, perhaps. How do I know you'll actually go through with it? How do I know you'll actually stay away from Lucia? A cold smile. I guess we trust each other. I guess we do. You know, he glanced around the store. With the right agent, you might get closer to $1.5 million for this place. Location's prime. Behind him, I saw the office door open silently. Lucia stood in the doorway, her face pale, eyes wide. Diego, following my gaze, turned and saw her. His expression shifted instantly to one of surprise and dismay. Lucia, this isn't... Don't. Her voice was steady, controlled, but I could see the tremor in her hands. Don't even try. Diego stood. Your grandmother set this up. She's manipulating you. Is she? Lucia stepped fully into the room. Or did she just expose what was already there? This isn't what it looks like. It's exactly what it looks like. She moved closer, her posture straight and dignified despite the pain evident in her eyes. You were using me. Again. Waiting for the right moment to cash in. That's not true. I care about you. You just agreed to never see me again for $1 million. Her voice cracked slightly. What part of that says care? Diego looked between us, his charm falling away to reveal the calculation beneath. This was a setup. Yes, I admitted calmly, to show Lucia who you really are. Unbelievable. He grabbed his jacket from the back of the chair. You two deserve each other. Stuck in this pathetic bookstore with your precious literary principles. Better than being stuck with you, Lucia replied softly. Diego stormed to the door, turned for one last barb. For what it's worth, I was going to pay you back. The loan was legitimate. I don't think it was, Lucia said. I checked on your company, Diego. It doesn't exist anymore. It was dissolved 3 months ago for failure to file proper documentation. Before you ever contacted me. Surprise registered on his face, followed by a flash of grudging respect. You did your homework. I learned from my mistakes. She crossed her arms. Goodbye, Diego. He left without another word, the bell above the door jangling discordantly in his wake. The moment the door closed, Lucia's composure cracked. She covered her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking. I went to her immediately, wrapping my arms around her. I'm so sorry, I whispered, holding her as she cried. I'm so sorry you had to see that. You were right, she managed between sobs. You were right about everything. I wish I'd been wrong. We stood there in the center of the bookstore as afternoon light slanted through the windows, holding each other as we had 8 years before when Diego had first rejected his daughter. Only this time Lucia wasn't a frightened teenager, but a grown woman facing the painful truth about her father. After several minutes, her tears subsided. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. You set him up. I did. Are you angry? She shook her head. Grateful. I might have convinced myself he was sincere, given him the money. I couldn't let that happen. I know. She took a shaky breath. Thank you for protecting me even when I didn't think I needed it. That's what family does. I brushed a strand of hair from her face. Protects each other even from uncomfortable truths. She nodded, then gave a watery laugh. Were you really going to sell him paginas? No, I smiled. The store isn't even solely mine to sell anymore. It's ours, remember? Right. She looked around at the bookshelves, the reading nooks, the space we'd created together. Our home. Always. The weeks following Diego's final departure were difficult. Lucia moved through them with quiet determination, channeling her pain into her writing, into the foundation work, into making paginas even more of a sanctuary for those who needed one. I keep thinking about other kids like me, she said one evening as we closed up the store. How many are out there right now with parents who can't or won't care for them, who just need one person to see them to give them a chance? Too many, I agreed, turning off the lights. But you're making a difference, one child at a time. It doesn't feel like enough. It's more than most people do. She nodded, then asked the question I'd been waiting for. Why do you think he came back? Really, I considered my answer carefully. I think he saw your success and wanted to be part of it the way people always want to be associated with success. I think he needed money and saw you as a potential source. But I also think in his way he might have been curious about you. But not enough to actually care. Caring requires sacrifice, Nieta. Diego has never been willing to sacrifice for anyone but himself. She was quiet for a moment. I need to put this in the book. Your current manuscript. Yes, it's about cycles, how we repeat patterns across generations or break them. This is part of the story. Are you sure it's still raw? That's exactly why it belongs there. Her voice grew stronger. My whole career has been built on honesty about addiction, about abandonment, about finding family in unexpected places. This is just another chapter in that story. I squeezed her hand. Then write it. Every painful, beautiful word of it. Winter gave way to spring, spring to summer. Lucia finished her manuscript and delivered it to her publisher. Early reviews were enthusiastic, calling it her strongest work yet. As the release date approached, she threw herself into preparations, organizing book tour events, arranging speaking engagements. We should do something special for the launch, she said one morning in late July. Something bigger than our usual events. What did you have in mind? A foundation fundraiser combined with the book release. We could transform the entire store, invite local authors to participate, make it a community celebration. Her enthusiasm was infectious. I love it. We spent the next month planning. The event grew from a simple reading to a literary festival spanning both floors of Paginas and spilling onto Pearl Street itself. Local restaurants donated food, the university's creative writing department agreed to sponsor a panel discussion, and several of Lucia's literary friends offered to attend. The night before the event, we stayed late at the store putting final touches on the decorations. String lights hung from the ceiling, creating a warm glow among the bookshelves. Tables were arranged throughout the space, each featuring signed books from participating authors. A stage had been set up in the cafe area for readings and the panel discussion. It's beautiful, Lucia said, surveying our work. Better than I imagined. It's going to be perfect. I put my arm around her shoulders. Are you ready? I think so. She leaned against me. I've been thinking a lot about Mom lately, about what she'd think of all this. She'd be incredibly proud. I hope so. She was quiet for a moment. I used to be so angry with her, for the addiction, for not getting help, for leaving me alone. But now I just feel sad. She missed so much. She loved you the best she could, Nieta. We all have our limitations. Like Diego. Yes, though I'd argue his limitations were more self-imposed. She nodded thoughtfully. I've realized something working on this book. I spent so much of my life wanting parents who could love me properly, wanting to be enough for them to choose me to stay to get better. That's natural. Maybe, but I've been looking in the wrong direction. She turned to face me. The real miracle isn't finding parents who won't abandon you. It's finding family in the people who choose to love you, who see you at your worst and stay anyway. Tears pricked my eyes. Like us. Like us, she smiled. Mom did one thing right. She named me after finding light in darkness, Lucia. And even though she couldn't be that light for me, she somehow set me on a path to find you. And you were the light that brought me back from my darkness after Javier died. I hugged her tightly. We found each other when we both needed it most. Exactly. She pulled back her eyes, shining. That's what the book is really about. Not the betrayals or the pain, but the healing, the rebuilding, the choosing of family. The launch event the next day exceeded all our expectations. Hundreds of people filled paginas, spilling onto the sidewalk outside. Lucia signed books for 3 hours straight, her hand cramping, but her smile never faltering. The foundation raised over $30,000 for writing programs for foster youth. Local news covered the event, interviewing Lucia about her journey from homelessness to literary acclaim. Late that night, after the last guests had gone, after the caterers had packed up, after the bookstore was quiet again, Lucia and I sat among the remaining decorations, exhausted but content. "I can't believe it's over," she said, slipping off her shoes. "All that planning, and it's done in a flash." "Not over," I corrected gently. "Just a new chapter beginning." She smiled at the writerly metaphor. "You're right as usual." "Tell me," I asked, curious what comes next after the tour, after the dust settles. She considered the question. "I'm thinking of expanding the foundation, opening a dedicated space for writing workshops, maybe even transitional housing for youth aging out of foster care." "That's ambitious." "I learned from the best." She reached for my hand. "And you, what's next for Elena Vega?" I laughed softly. "At 70, maybe finally slowing down a little, letting you take more control of Páginas." "Never. You'll be rearranging display tables and arguing with publishers about discounts when you're 90. "Probably true." We sat in comfortable silence, the bookstore quiet around us. The only sound, the tick of the old clock on the wall, the same clock that had been keeping time since Javier and I opened Páginas 45 years before. "Abuela," Lucia's voice was soft. "Yes, thank you for everything, for seeing something in that desperate girl who walked into your store, for taking a chance on me." "Oh, Nieta," I squeezed her hand. "It was never a chance. It was recognition. I saw myself in you, my stubbornness, my love of words. I saw Javier's kindness, his quiet strength." "And Diego?" she asked carefully. "His determination, his intelligence." I smiled. "But you took those traits and turned them toward compassion rather than ambition. You broke the cycle." She nodded, satisfaction in her eyes. "I did, didn't I?" "Without question." Outside, the street lamps cast gentle light on Pearl Street. Inside Páginas, surrounded by books and memories and possibilities, 2 women sat hand in hand, not bound by tragedy or loss, but by choice, by love, by the family we had created for ourselves when the one we were born to failed us. "What shall we do tomorrow?" Lucia asked. "What we always do," I replied. "Open the store, welcome readers, share stories, build our legacy. Together." And in that moment, I knew with absolute certainty that whatever came next, whatever challenges, whatever joys, whatever surprises life had in store, we would face them as we had faced everything else since that November day when fate brought us together. As family, as home, as the light that finds its way through darkness, illuminating the path forward. The end.